Talk to me in terms of just the current state of Bitcoin, right? Obviously, we've seen everything from regulatory pressures to some of the energy FUD, but it feels like Bitcoin is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's just kind of produces block after block after block. Is that your evaluation? How do you think about where we are right now?
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is kind of a power unto itself, and and people will say glib things like Bitcoin doesn't care, but I guess to some extent it doesn't. It just keeps producing blocks, and one of the beauties of the kind of decentralization or survivability of Bitcoin versus previous, much more centralized electronic cash systems is that you know individuals and companies can leave and join the network at will, and even whole countries can. Restrict use of Bitcoin and Bitcoin carries on. And, in certain countries, it depends on the culture, but you've seen cases where a country will ban Bitcoin and the usage will actually go up or move to, decentralized platforms for OTC trade and things like that. So that's kind of interesting because there's one form of bootstrap for Bitcoin, which is that you know, you could do it all word of mouth. If there's enough Bitcoin acceptance and deployment that you could ask around for a friend of a friend and find somebody to like in-person OTC. So I think Bitcoin is probably at that point already. And the emerging market adoption is actually accelerating faster for payments and sort of hands-on use than the West, which is great. Obviously they have more limited uh, payment options compared to what we have in the West with more stable currencies, debit cards, bank accounts, and so on. So they have a reason to adopt, perhaps similar to the way they kind of leapfrogged um, fixed line telephony and skipped straight to mobile phones, right? So they have a problem to solve, and so the street is figuring out how to solve it using Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, in the month of July, 1.2 million new entities on the Bitcoin blockchain, fastest growth ever recorded in a month. So pretty incredible. What do you think the biggest hurdle for Bitcoin is over the next 5 years?
Um, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it develops. Of course, it's impressive how the game theory, so it's evolved over time as bigger players have come in. There have been some kind of policy skirmishes, but basically the market has prevailed. And so I think that's one of the very interesting and illuminating aspects of the, so-called block size war, right? Which is, to my mind, what that, without regard to what people thought or preferred, that ultimately the market prevailed. And that says that Bitcoin is, it proved its chops in being an apolitical money, that ultimately, interest groups don't stand much chance because the market will tend to sort of rat around it and prevail. So that's great, but it make it interesting if you have sovereign Bitcoin positions mining. So I think a certain amount of decentralization and individuals and entities holding their own private keys helps. If there's too much kind of ETF-like use, that could pose a policy risk because the ETF managers may feel they have a fiduciary responsibility to do something that the users wouldn't want to do. I think ultimately the market prevails anyway, but that could be choppy, shall we say.
There's a lot of conversation right now online about Bitcoin maximalism. Do you consider yourself a Bitcoin maximalist, or are there other things that you're interested in or open to? How do you think about maximalism and then everything else?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's really a kind of neutral Bitcoin monetary maximalist. So, the I'm pretty interested in any kinds of innovation, the Bitcoin sector and uh, blue sky academic research, and a number of chains have brought to market some pretty interesting innovations over the last 5 years. And so there's, obviously innovation is great and chains can copy and learn from each other. Where it gets kind of debatable is the kind of switching cost of chains. So John Pfeffer has a pretty interesting paper on this where he makes the argument that basically it doesn't make a lot of sense to pre-buy and hold utility tokens, where the utility token is like a coin that you use to pay for smart contract execution or storage or something in a chain, because technology gets cheaper. And if a chain gets expensive, people will switch chain, and then you'll be left holding the wrong utility tokens. So I'd say it's a bit like early enthusiasm about the internet, and somebody proposed pre-buying megabytes of bandwidth or something in the 90s, and of course the cost of bandwidth dropped multiple orders of magnitude. So I think the just-in-time argument means that there's definitely utility value in a chain, but there may not be kind of defensible, sticky value after you take into account switching costs. And so I'm expecting that to play out in the market, mid to long term.
What do you think the price of Bitcoin hits by the end of the year? Do you think about price at all? Is there any sort of framework you use to evaluate these kind of cyclical bull and bear markets?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a trader on the side and was doing some arbitrage in different types of trading before starting block streams. So I was a day trader back in the late 90s as well, in stocks and stuff. So kind of interested in trading, dabbling, and trying out the different Bitcoin products, perpetual futures and options and things. So I think even before the stock to flow valuation model, which is, it's an interesting observation, and we'll see if it holds. The comparison I liked was the sort of competitor to physical gold, because in many ways Bitcoin is a better physical gold, and so you can infer a kind of valuation from how many coins there are, current price of gold, and let's say that value gets divided up, and you come out into the hundreds of thousands, like maybe 500,000 even on that basis alone. So end of year, I mean, the options prices for 100K are showing that is the market's thinking that's quite possible. So I'm curious to see if that comes.
Would you bet on it? Are you buying options?
Well, I mean, actually, I looked at the Ledger X options and concluded that they were underpriced, so I should buy some. Basically, basically because you can compare them to the kind of not risk-free, but a somewhat risk incurring Bitcoin yield. So if you collect interest on Bitcoin, and you can see that the option gives you less return than collecting interest on Bitcoin, that says you should buy the option because it's cheap compared to that. So yeah, I might take a punt on that as well. So because people's normal intuition is, well, I'll sell some options because I get money now, and if that price is hit, well, it's like I put a limit order in and it got triggered, and I was philosophically happy to sell at that price. But if you look at the pricing and you think those things are underpriced, then logically you should buy some.
What's up, guys? Bang, bang. Thanks so much for watching the Best Business Show today. If we're going to be the best business show, we obviously need the best partner. That's why the exclusive sponsor of the Best Business Show is SoFi. They're an all-in-one platform that allows you to invest in all kinds of different assets, including stocks, ETFs, crypto, IPOs, and they even have an automated investing function, if that's your thing. So before we start getting after it again, make sure that you go download SoFi, you get an invest account, and when you make your first crypto trade, regardless of what you buy, they'll give you $10 in Bitcoin for free. It's that simple. Head on over to SoFi.com/pomp to get started today. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope that you come back and watch more of the Best Business Show tomorrow.